To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing them in them, to die, to sleep. No more, and by sleep to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consumation. Devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's a rub. For in the sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that make calamity so long life, that make calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorn's time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's continuum, the pangs of despaired love, the laws delayed, the insolence of office and the spurns, the patient merit of thy unworthy tasks, when he himself made his quietest make, with a bare bodkin, who would fardels bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life. But that's the dread of something after death. The undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles thee well, and makes us rather bear those ills we have, than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sickled o'er with the pale cast of thought, an enterprise of great pitch and moment. With this regard, the currents turn out awry and lose the name of action. Gender is a social construct, and believing in God is just a crutch. You mix them all together and stir them well. What do you get? Atheist T-girl. Hello, everyone. A little bit of a trigger warning. I know people don't like that term, but I still use it. This will be talking a bit about the end of life and choices people make at that point. So if that's something you struggle with, go ahead and watch something else. Anyway, today I went and watched a movie called 5 Feet Apart. And it was an interesting movie about 3 people who suffered from cystic fibrosis, which is basically a disease that destroys your lungs, fills them up with mucus until you die. And while watching it, something occurred to me that atheism has given me that I did not have as Christian. So, at one point, one of the characters is describing what death is for someone with cystic fibrosis. They talked about how towards the end, what's going to happen is their lungs will fill with mucus and they are going to be struggling for breath. Every breath pulling it in the air, but not getting any, until finally it gets to the part where they drown in their own phlegm and just stop breathing. Well, they keep breathing, but just no air gets to them, and then the dark. And listening to that death described, the thought I had was, if I ever had to make that choice, I think before it got to that last point, I would decide to end my life, because I don't know that I would be able to go all the way through that. And it occurred to me that this is a freedom that I didn't have as a Christian. Now, let me explain. In most of Christianity, not all, there'll be those who disagree, as if with every movement, there are 2 unforgivable sins: blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, which we could talk about another time, and suicide. Suicide, there's a couple of reasons why people call it an unforgivable sin. One, people say, it's the same thing that Judas did, and so you're unforgivable for that. Two, they say, if you commit suicide, you're dead, so you can't ask for forgiveness. But in either case, most Christians believe that if you kill yourself, you then go to hell, even if you're a Christian. And what this results in is a lot of people who, at the end of their life, they have to push through and keep living in a life that at this point has gotten to the point where it's not worth living, where just drawing a breath is pain, where you just can't go on. Yet, because of some religious belief, you're not allowed to end yourself. And yes, end yourself is final, but there are times where it is a relief. And it's a bit sad that Christians take that away from people. Now, there could be a bigger discussion about euthanasia and allowing people to do this medically and legally, but I'm talking right now just about the personal decision to do it yourself. It's something Christianity takes away from you. And I finally realized, and I know this is going to sound dark, but during the movie, when I realized that it is now an option that's available to me, I cried. And I think the way I need to explain it is, I watched my mother die of cancer. There's a lot there that I won't talk about because I've talked about it before with Kent Hovind and other fun stuff. But I watched this woman I love get thinner, get to the point she couldn't get out of bed, fall unconscious, and then the last day of her life, I watched her struggle to breathe. I don't know how accurate the nurse was, but he said that her organs were beginning to liquefy, and that's what it sounded like. Just one moment she was breathing, and then the next moment she's... It was a horrifying liquid sound that I don't ever want to hear again, yet I have once, when my best friend died of cancer. It was terrible, and it went on for hours. And I just wanted it to end. And to be honest, I think if my mom had had a choice, she would have chosen to end it a lot sooner than before then. And to have done it at a point where she could actually know what was going on and was not in a bed, in a diaper, of no way of controlling herself and slowly drowning in her own phlegm. We could have made arrangements so that her family could have been there when she died. She could have said goodbye to him instead of being unconscious. As it was the last moment. I had to leave the house to go get my sister, and by the time I got back, she was gone. I didn't get to say goodbye to her. But even if I had, she wouldn't have known it because it had gotten to that point. And I saw the same thing happen with my best friend. I watched her, sorry, I might get a little emotional. This is about a year ago. I watched my best friend die of cancer. Now, she was agnostic/atheist, but it came so fast she didn't have a choice. But again, I had to watch someone I love slowly get bad and get to the point she couldn't do anything. I watched her lose her mind after one of the surgeries they tried to save her with, to the point she didn't know who I was. Thought she was in a hospital being held by cults. And honestly, if I ever found I had cancer and it looked like it was not going to get to the point, I am glad now that I have that option, as dark as it sounds. Whereas before, as a Christian, my only option was to just endure it as much as I could and to let it happen, and to take, I know there's not any real dignity in death, but to take away what dignity I had. And so I'm glad. It was a sad movie, but I did learn something. And I think in one way that is something atheism does have over Christianity. Even if we don't have the false hope of a life after death, we do know that if we do decide to end our suffering, there is no punishment for it. And that we don't have to put up with what can't be lived through. So, yeah, I know this one was a bit of a downer, and I apologize. It's just something occurred to me when I was watching the movie, and I didn't have something prepared tonight. I was just going to delay it till Friday. But I wanted to talk about it. And thank y'all for listening. Sort of sound morbid saying like and subscribe, but if you want to, please do. And my little cat wants to say hi. Hey, Ving. Be sure to ring that bell, and so that you know whenever I go live or I do more videos. And thank you, Christy, for your little note. And yes, Juve, it's a floof. Her name is Fang. See, there she is. She's trying to figure out what I'm doing. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. And I have a video coming up on Friday that I'm working on. It's PragerU doing stand-up comedy. So that's going to be wonderful. Thank you, and y'all all have a great day.